Yeah, baby. It's episode 131 of Ask the Inspector on January 30th, 2024, or 2024, as it might be your wont to say. Jeff Norman and Scott Ritter, our favorite weapons inspector, here as usual, back to our regular schedule. A little bit late today. Apologies for that. This is the lightning round. Every Tuesday, Scott answers each question in 3 minutes or less. We do it all in 1 hour. Let's get straight to it, except for one thing. I just need to know quickly, Scott, are you feeling better?
I'm feeling great, except my heart rate's up because Maverick had to do a security sweep of the area around my house before the show, meaning he escaped. So I was running around trying to bring the Pomeranian under control. So it's my fault that that we're running late, or should I say it's Maverick's fault. But other than that little bit of a heart cardio related activity, we're doing okay.
All right. Maverick is back.
Maverick is back. He's he doesn't think that he did anything wrong, that it's all my fault, apparently. So
okay. All right. That's a good MO. Let's proceed with the assumption in general that it's always Scott's fault. The first question comes from Sonbo in Brooklyn, New York. How will the recent deaths of the Americans... Oh, maybe I should also... Should we do the coin giveaway? Do you want to do the New Year's coin or the friendship coin from last time? What do you think we should do?
What's our intention with the New Year's coin? Is
Well, I think we gotta get a new website going, which will take a couple of weeks or so, and then put it on sale.
Why don't we let the audience decide? Do you want the one last shot at the New Year's coin, or do you want to go back to the original, the OG coin, the original gangsta coin?
All right, let's spend 5 minutes with the comments, and then Yelena let us know which coin they want. First question is Sonbel from Brooklyn. How will the recent deaths of the American soldiers in Jordan, may they rest in peace, affect the U.S.'s involvement in both the short and long term? Is U.S. withdrawal a possibility, or will hostilities with Iran intensify?
Well, first of all, I think we need to correct the record. The United States maintains that the 3 American soldiers who lost their lives were killed in Jordan at a facility known as Tower 22. But Tower 22 is part and parcel of a larger base, the Al-Tanif base, that's in Syria. And the Jordanian government says that these soldiers didn't die on Jordanian territory, that there was no attack on Jordanian territory, that whatever took place across the border in Syria, which is more than likely the case. But the United States doesn't want to admit that, because then they'd have to admit that they're sort of illegally occupying Syrian territory, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to embrace the notion that these soldiers died on Jordanian territory. I think that there's a good reason to believe that they died on the main American facility in Syria, the Al-Tanif base. But the United States doesn't want to admit that, and there's reason, because we're there illegally. Joe Biden has said that he will retaliate, and he says he's already picked the nature of his retaliation. My guess is that this retaliation will unfold over several days, because it has to be different than past retaliation, which was sort of a tit for tat, bombing nothing just to be seen to be bombing as a way of, saving face in an effort to, do escalation management. And now that American lives have been lost and a significant number of Americans have been wounded, this will have to be different. And so, in order to create the perception of deterrence, I think we're looking at a bombing campaign that could be 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. According to the media, Biden has sent a letter to the Iranians through Switzerland saying, don't retaliate after this, as if that works. We'll have to see what the nature of the retaliation is, but I think what we're looking at here is an escalation. I don't think the United States wants a war with Iran, so I think that the nature of the targets will be such that the Iranians may be able to back away from this without escalating, but we have to see. If the United States bombs the wrong targets, then there will be retaliation. And no matter what, it's not going to stop the attacks from the Iraqi militias or the Syrian militias. And the final part of your question is the United States going to eventually withdraw? Yes. The United States position in Syria and in Iraq is untenable. The Iraqi government doesn't want us there. The Syrian government never invited us there. And eventually we will withdraw, regardless of what Victoria Nuland and other State Department officials say.
All right, escalation is the key word, or as John Kirby says, escalatory. Let's take a look at him.
We are not looking for a war with Iran. We are not seeking a conflict with the regime in a military way. And as I said in the opening, we're not looking to escalate here. This attack over the weekend was escalatory. Make no mistake about it. And it requires a response. Make no mistake about that. I will not get ahead of the president's decision making.
And as for the president's decision making, a short time ago, our esteemed commander-in-chief says he has made a decision. Listen to this. Decisive presentation.
Ago, we heard from President Biden. He told reporters he has made a decision on how to respond to the drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan that killed 3 troops. Listen.
Yes. What's the message Iran responsible for the death of those 3 Americans? I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it. We'll have that discussion. We'll see. I don't think we need a wider war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm looking for.
He's not looking for a wider war in the Middle East. Well, you can't argue with that, right? There it is.
Yeah,
it's decisive presentation. Is that decisive?
Decisive presentation. I really enjoy the fact that he's taken umbrage over the fact that the Iranians provided the weapons to the militias that struck American facilities, causing American casualties. He's really mad at the Iranians, but he somehow thinks it's great that we can pour hundreds of billions of dollars of weaponry into Ukraine to kill tens of thousands of Russians, and that's okay. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. And Maverick, he wants to say that A, he's sorry for delaying the show, and B, he agrees. Hypocrisy is unbelievable. Right, buddy?
All right. Apology accepted.
He was down below at my feet begging for attention because I was unhappy with him running away. So I had to repair.
He could tell you're a little bit angry at him. All right. Looks like everything is warmed up between the two of you. Next question is from Freddie. I guess that is Nietzsche in Bavaria. Jordanian cabinet spokesman Mohammed Mabiden, I don't know if that's spelled correctly, said that the strike targeted the U.S. base in Syria, as you said, rather than a base in the Jordanian territory. From an international law point of view, does it make a huge difference? Well, I didn't know you were going to kind of address this already, but here we go anyway.
I mean, from a law perspective, it makes a huge difference. But the United States doesn't care about international law, so in the end, it just doesn't matter. If U.S. troops are in Syria, they have no legitimacy, none whatsoever. There's no mandate for their presence under domestic law, meaning the United States Congress hasn't specifically authorized their presence there. And there's definitely no mandate under international law. In fact, if they're on Syrian soil, they're by definition war criminals because they're there in violation of Syrian sovereignty. So to be on Jordanian territory at the where they would be there at the invitation of the Jordanian government, it would show an attack on U.S. forces that are there, with legitimate purpose. So there's a huge difference, legally speaking. But since the United States doesn't give a damn about international law, at the end, it just doesn't matter.
Watch your language, Major.
Did I say something wrong?
No. We got a good suggestion, I think, from one of the audience members. Why don't we just give away the coin and let the winner decide which of the 2 coins they want? How does that sound?
Boom, boom.
Do we have a brilliant audience or what?
Mic drop. Mic drop.
You are a hepcat with that lingo. Matthew, in New Jersey. 2 recent reports in Foreign Policy and Reuters suggest the U.S. may be looking to scale down their troop presences in Syria and Iraq, respectively. If true, Could this development be in response to Netanyahu's public defiance regarding the two-state solution?
No, I don't think there's a linkage between those two, not direct linkage. I think what we're seeing, recognizing, is something that's been widely known in American national security circles for some time. There's no viable mission for American troops in Syria or in Iraq. We talk about the counter-ISIS mission, the Islamic State mission, but there's been articles that have highlighted the fact that we haven't been doing a counter-ISIS mission at all. We're just basically there as targets. And inevitably, something like what happened was going to happen. A strike that kills Americans, wounds significant numbers. It's just a matter of time. It's like playing Russian roulette. And so I think the Syria mission is untenable and will be terminated fairly soon. I think we could look at that happening definitely this year, maybe as soon as sometime this summer. The Iraq mission is linked to more legalities. You see discussions taking place with the Iraqi government on defining Iraqi-American security relationships, and depending on how that is defined, then a troop level will be approved. But again, I think the countering ISIS mission is over. So the idea of, we weren't supposed to have any combat troops in Iraq, but we of course have combat troops in Iraq. Because who participates in those raids? Every once in a while, Delta Force sorties out of Erbil into Syria to launch an attack against some ISIS dude. I think that this is going to also, you're going to see it ramp down. It'll be done more diplomatically, not as precipitously as the Syrian mission, but either way, the Iraqi government has said that they don't want American troops on their soil anymore. And if this retaliation, we have to see what happens with this retaliation. If the president of the United States uses American aircraft or drones to attack targets in Iraq without the authority of the Iraqi government, we're violating Iraqi sovereignty. They're already mad because we've done that. Our drones have hit targets outside of Baghdad, and the Iraqi government's going, "You can't do that. This is our country. This belongs to us." And America's saying, "Stick it up your ear. We don't care." And I think if we do that again, striking targets in Iraq, that could worsen the situation in terms of Iraq's willingness to have continued American military presence. So it's very much a work in progress.
All right, Scott, are you in the mood to talk to old blind Jim?
Sure.
I talked to him the other day privately, and he scolded me. He said his name is not Blind Jim, it's Old Blind Jim.
That's right. He is Old Blind Jim. Yep.
All right. Old Blind Jim, you're on. Turn your computer down.
I'm working on it, boss.
Okay.
Okay. My question to Scott is, and this would certainly take moral fiber in our government, which I don't think there is any, but we had some 900 bases thereabouts around the world. And I heard you talk before about how short we were coming about the number of people in the military. So given that some people are talking now about conscription, do you agree that we should be closing the vast majority of those bases, bring our military folks home, all services, and give them the training they really need, and use what we have, those numbers, instead of conscriptions? Because I'm against the draft at this point, simply because the Anglo-American Empire is the one steering all these wars. Your take, please.
All right. Thanks for your call, Old Blind Jim. Take care.
Thanks, Old Blind Jim. He's a great guy, by the way, and he has a great dog. Let me put it this way. I think the military exists to win armed conflict. I do believe that we have to have a government that avoids war at all, if at all possible. That war should be the absolute last option, that we exhaust every means possible short of war before going to war. But if we're going to go to war, we need to win. And I will tell you right now, I will kick the living crap out of any conscript military in the world, the Marine Corps. A professional army will slaughter conscripts. That's just reality. And given the fact that today's military incorporates a lot of complex technologies that require significant training, we can't have a conscript military that's able to employ the weaponry that we that we've equipped our military with today. And if we want to do complex combined arms, maneuver warfare doctrine, we need professional soldiers who train all the time. Train far more than the, 2 to 3 years that you want. How long are we going to conscript people for? So I don't like conscription because it weakens us. If we have a conscript army, we're not very good. I would prefer to see us do what you say. Stop these irresponsible global deployments, bring American troops home, and then focus on training to fight and win any potential conflict we might find ourselves involved in. But while we're training, we should be putting a lot of money into diplomacy to ensure that we never have a war. To me, the ideal military career would be 20 years of training. That's it. You join, you train for 20 years, and you never go to war. And that's a good thing because the diplomats are doing their job. But if we ever need you, you're ready, you're trained, you're prepared. Professional military force. I am dead set against conscription because conscript army is going to lose the war.
All right. Next question. Somebody asked, is it old blind Jim or what was that question again? Old blind Jim or it's old blind Jim. Old is first. I don't know if it's old like apostrophe or OLD. We'll get every nuance figured out.
He's old and he's blind.
Yeah, but is it OLD or OLE? You know, we'll get it. Since he wants it precise, I'm willing to get it precise for him. Voss in the USA. In your opinion, who was tactically the best general or commander in the American Civil War on either side?
That's a tough one. But first of all, that's a picture of the Appomattox surrender. And I believe, I don't know if Joshua Chamberlain is depicted in that photograph or not. I think I see Phil Sheridan, Custer, Grant, but I don't know.
Well, let me just say, if it's the appropriate photo, I deserve no credit. And if it's the inappropriate question, I deserve no blame. The questioner provided this image.
No, it's a good photograph. But okay. I think that Stonewall Jackson was considered to be one of the best, operational tactics. I think it's the wrong term because tactics is down at the company level, etc. We're talking about maneuvering forces on the battlefield to have a direct impact on the battlefield. And Stonewall Jackson was probably one of the best generals that the Confederacy had. The Union had a lot of really good generals, but a guy who has shown true grit is Joshua Chamberlain. He, of course, commanded, I believe it was the 22nd Maine in the Battle of Gettysburg, Battle of Little Round Top. It's been shown in movies what they did there. I've walked that battlefield several times, and you can't help but get emotional thinking about what the hell was going on both sides. The Confederates running up, charging up that hill wearing wool uniforms in the summer heat. And then the Union guys on the top, basically, running out of ammunition and having to fix bayonets instead of retreating, to fix bayonets and charge. And it just happens to be at the time of the battle where the Confederates had lost everything. It was so hot. They were so tired. They had gone up that hill that when the Union came down with the bayonets, they surrendered and won the battle. So Joshua Chamberlain gets my vote for the Union, and Stonewall Jackson gets my vote for the Confederacy. But there's a lot of really good Civil War experts out there that are going to say, Scott, you don't know what you're talking about. I concede that.
All right. Who do you think will be the most impressive commander in the upcoming United States Civil War? That's a joke.
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Let me see. What am I trying to do here? Fu in Chicago, given that the pro-independence candidate won Taiwan's presidential election, do you think World War III is likely in the next 4 years? So if not Civil War, maybe World War III. Something's going to happen.
Well, Fu, I did 3 videos today, 2 2-minute topics and 1 5-minute factual. And because I was rushing to edit it, to get it out before this show, the 5-minute factual has disappeared. I think it got deleted and cannot be recovered. It dealt with this very issue. So you're going to have to take this as your answer instead of having a fancy 5-minute factual. The DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party won the election of president. The election was for two things, though: the presidency and the parliament. There were three candidates, one from the DPP, one from the TPP, and then the other one from the Kuomintang, the KMT. Kuomintang used to be the party in charge. They were voted out in 2015. DPP took over. And the Kuomintang had been pushing for, better economic relations, a peaceful resolution to the issue of Taiwan Chinese sovereignty, et cetera, et cetera. And so the feeling was that if the DPP won the vote and the Kuomintang lost, that this pro-West, pro-independence party would inevitably lead to war, except they only won 40% of the vote. And so now, and they lost control of the parliament. They used to have 62 seats. They now have 51 seats. They are not in control of the parliament. The parliament controls the legislative agenda. And so I think what we're seeing right now is you have a president who does not have a mandate of the Taiwanese people. Fully 60% of the population do not support the policies of, potential conflict with China. They support peace, and the legislature is controlled by two parties that will be pursuing better relations. And so you're going to see a Taiwan that's going to find itself in a domestic political, dynamic that is not conducive towards war. So I actually think, even though the DPP candidate Lia Cheng-ti, I think his name is, but I could be wrong on that. I mispronounced just about everything I tried to pronounce. There won't be a war because there's no traction. He can't get any traction domestically. The parliament won't support it, and the parliament is going to be pursuing a separate legislative agenda, trying to improve relations with Taiwan, as opposed to seeking, independence and crossing red lines that could lead to war.
All right, let's take another live phone call. Hi there, you're on with our favorite weapons inspector. What's your question for Scott?
Scott, my question is, do you think that Sergei Lavrov will be part of the next Putin administration? And if not, who do you think will replace him?
All right, good question. Enough with the phony French accent, though. We're not buying it.
We're not buying the French accent. Just like you shouldn't buy my American accent. Although when I was speaking in front of the Chechens, there were two things that came out. One, my Russian is horrible, and two, I got a hell of an American accent when I speak Russian. But it's sort of funny. Sergei Lavrov is one of the most accomplished diplomats the Russians have ever had. But like all human beings, he ages. And humans, unlike fine wine, don't get better with age. He's surpassed the mandatory retirement age. He's there on a waiver. He may continue to be waived in. I can't think of anybody that the Russians would want to have as their foreign minister than Sergei Lavrov. But time takes a toll on everybody, and he or the Russian government may decide that it's time for him to hang up its spurs. But the Russians they have a foreign ministry that is extraordinarily professional, staffed with some of the most accomplished diplomats. The deputy foreign minister, Ryabkov, is somebody who could easily step into that role. And Anatoly Antonov, the current ambassador to the United States, could very well be a viable candidate for foreign minister. The bottom line is, if Sergei Lavrov does step aside, he will be replaced by somebody who will be as capable. The Russians are professional. Sergei Lavrov is backed up by a foreign ministry staffed by professional diplomats who know their issues. He's backed up. He's not just a one-man show. He is a dominant personality. He has tremendous skill sets. But what makes him work isn't just Sergei Lavrov. It's the staff work that's done by the foreign minister, by the people under him who do all the preparation. That's still going to exist. And so even if you replace the foreign minister, I don't think you're going to see a hiccup in the system.
H in USA has a crazy hypothetical. Oh, one of those. Russia takes all of Ukraine, keeps the part that they want, then tells Poland, Hungary, and Romania that they can divvy up the rest on the condition that they leave NATO. Would they take the offer?
No. You know, the Russians believe in self-determination, and so there is a scenario, I believe, that Russia would occupy Ukraine and then open up for referendum. And there might be territories that say we want to go to Romania. There might be territories that say we want to go to Hungary. There might be territories that say we want to go to Poland. And then Russia would determine if this is in their national security interest. For instance, turning Western Ukraine over to Poland is something that, the Belarusians have said they won't be too kindly disposed towards. So, plus, if you don't cure the Banderist problem, you're just perpetuating, the ability of this Nazi ideology to resurrect itself down the road. So, I don't know. I do believe that Ukraine's finished. I mean, we've seen too many statements by too many senior Russians that imply that whatever Ukraine's going to look like when this conflict is over, it ain't going to be what it looks like today. And the government won't be the same and stuff. And so, we'll have to see how things shake out. But to try and lure Romania, Hungary, and Poland away from NATO by offering them territorial concessions in Ukraine is a non-starter.
All right, Scott, we have a guy named George who sent the same question in text form and also voicemail. He tried every method except skywriting, so he really wants to get his question in. Let's take his voicemail message.
Hi, Scott. My name's Chris. 57.
Whoop, that's the wrong message.
Age.
Sorry about that. Let's take this one instead.
Hi, this is George from Philadelphia. My question is, why was Ukraine potentially joining NATO more threatening to the Russians than when the Baltic states joined? Is the difference mainly geographical? They're both on Russia's border and have Russian populations, but it looks like control over Ukraine would give NATO much deeper coverage of Russian territory than over Estonia or Latvia. Anyway, would you please comment on the strategic difference? Thanks.
Sure. First thing is that the Baltic states don't provide any geopolitical viable geopolitical threat to Russia. So having them independent and even having them join NATO wasn't seen as an existential threat to Russia. Yes, there were problems with the Russian populations in each of these three Baltic republics. The Russian government, the Russian nation is not happy about how these populations are being treated. But this isn't, it's not an existential question of the survival of Russia. Ukraine, for instance, let's take the Donbass. The Donbass has always been called the heart of Russia. In fact, if you go back to the 1930s, there are posters that show that it is the economic heart of Russia. Even when they talked about Ukraine as an independent entity after the Second World War, it was economically integrated. It wasn't an independent economic. There was this integration, and the integration of the Ukrainian people and the Russian people was there in the military, in civil society, just culturally. It's one and the same. Plus, it extends into the heartland of Russia, literally abuts up against Rostov-on-Don, Belgorod, into Kursk, Voronezh. It's a shorter drive to Moscow. To lose Ukraine to a openly hostile military alliance like NATO that uses Russia as its reason to exist would be unacceptable. And to give you an example, people say, well, it's not threatening Russia. Well, what does Russia have to worry about? Well, gosh, the Americans put the Mark 41 Aegis ashore into Poland and Romania, two NATO nations. Oh, it's just anti-missile defense, except they lied through their teeth. The same platform could be used to deliver cruise missiles or modified surface-to-air missiles that now have a surface-to-surface configuration, which is exactly what the United States has done in violation of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, because all this was considered before the INF Treaty. We withdrew from it. And the Russians are saying, that ain't going to happen in Ukraine. We're not going to let you make Ukraine part of NATO, and then you forward deploy missiles now that when you fire them, they are minutes away from hitting Moscow. No, 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 and no. So yeah, Ukraine's a completely different picture economically, in terms of geopolitical posturing, in terms of national security. There's any number of reasons why Russia's existential survival would be threatened by Ukraine being a member of NATO. And the important thing is, we all knew that in the West. We knew it. William Burns wrote a memorandum, "Niet means niet," back in 2008, saying don't invite Ukraine into NATO because the Russians said no, and they're willing to go to war about it. And we knew why they didn't want them to join. So, yeah, no, Ukraine is completely different than the three Baltic states.
All right, just squeaking in 3 minutes. This is very, very strict. Next question comes from Zaki B in Toronto. Hamas seems to still have lots of fight in them. How long do you think they can sustain fighting Israel?
Longer than Israel can sustain fighting Hamas. Hamas has won this war. They win by not losing. Israel said that a precondition to victory is the physical destruction of Hamas politically and militarily. Hamas is stronger today politically than they have ever been. If there was an election in the Palestinian regions, Hamas would win the election overwhelmingly, be the president and control the legislative bodies. Militarily, after everything Israel's done, Israel's retreating from Gaza as we speak. They're withdrawing. Hamas is regaining control of territories. Hamas fought the Israeli army to a standstill. Less than 20% of the tunnels have been identified and destroyed. But again, I like that number. 20% of what? How do they? Because the Israelis have no clue what all the tunnel network is. If they did, they'd have destroyed them. They don't know where the tunnels are. So it's an estimate. We estimate that we have destroyed 20%, which means they're probably destroyed far less than that because they don't understand the total extent of the Palestinian tunnel network. Hamas prepared for this fight, and Hamas continues to resist. I think Hamas can go as long or longer than Israel can. So that's why the Israelis are withdrawing. They're looking to go for this long war of attrition. But I think they won't be able to sustain it politically. So, Hamas will outlast Israel. There's no doubt in my mind.
Philip in New York, as opposed to Phil in London. Did you see the hubbub that ensued over that? We did a highlight clip and made it about the Phil segment. And Phil himself responded in the comment section. Did you see any of that?
I did. Yes.
Right. Maybe we should have Phil on to debate you. It turns out he's the editor of some publication in London or something. So I don't know. Maybe that would be interesting. No response from the weapons inspector. I'll take that.
I'm up for any combat. So yeah.
Right.
Phil wants to fight. Let's fight.
Philip in New York, as opposed to Phil. Why won't Russia help Armenia when it comes to Turkey and Azerbaijan's genocidal intentions? It seems like Russia has just been providing lip service, and their so-called peacekeepers haven't helped at all.
Well, that's just an absurdity. The peacekeepers are there to keep peace. But what do you want Russia to do? Rewrite international law? You need to understand that under international law, Nagorno-Karabakh is Azerbaijani territory. It was never independent. The Armenians carried out a war of aggression against Azerbaijan to take control, to evict Azerbaijan as the sovereign government of an area that, of course, it's primarily Armenian population. But what do you want the Russians to do? Because if the Russians turn around and just unilaterally say, yeah, we support Armenia on this, then Russia has, they opened the door. Russia isn't going to do that. So the Russian peacekeepers were there to protect the Armenian population, but the Armenian population belonged to Azerbaijan sovereignty. And, it's the Armenians that caused the problems. It's the Armenians that occupied, a significant percentage of Azerbaijani territory in order to create a land bridge between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, and then refused to negotiate in good faith to return that territory. So we've got that problem. We got the problem of international law and definitions of that. Now we have Armenia has not claimed Nagorno-Karabakh. Well, that's Nagorno-Karabakh claims to be Armenian, and Armenia provided weapons. I mean, come on, let's stop splitting hairs, okay? We know what was going on in Nagorno-Karabakh. It's Azerbaijani territory. It's not an independent state, and Russia was never going to recognize it as an independent state unilaterally. There would have to have been a negotiating process, and Armenia wasn't willing to negotiate in good faith. That's the bottom line. So Azerbaijan, together with Turkey, undertook military operations to resolve this situation. Given it Turkey's history with the Armenians, the genocide, the alleged genocide, whatever side of that argument you're on, 1915 to 1918, it's touchy. Nobody wants to see Azeris or Turks killing Armenians, and yet the Armenians lost the conflict, and a lot of Armenians died. The other thing is that the Armenians are just dicks. Let's just straight up be honest about this. Vladimir Putin went to visit them a couple years ago, and the Armenian prime minister left him standing on the airfield. Now, if you want good relations with Russia, let me give you a pro tip. Don't leave the Russian president standing on the airfield by himself. He's likely to say, screw you. Boom. And then the other thing is they keep reaching out to the United States. You have to decide, Armenia, where do you want to be? You want to be a friend of America? Pull out a map. Look at where America is. Look where you are. Look who your neighbors are, and understand that your only chance at survival is friendship with Russia, and yet you're turning them down at every second. You're insulting them. No, Armenia is responsible for Armenia's problems. Russia has been a very good friend to Armenia, and they will continue to be a friend with Armenia. But there's only so much you can do when you have an Armenian government that appears to be wanting to align itself with a West who has agenda of using that realignment to undermine Russia. Remember, nothing the West does in the Southern Caucasus is to the benefit of the people of Southern Caucasus. It's done strictly to undermine and destabilize Russia.
How dare you?
I think I detect a pattern developing, Scott. Is it that anybody named Phil or Philip gets under your skin? Could that be?
Phil didn't get under my skin. That was a good question. The Armenians get under my skin.
All right. Sometimes it's hard to tell who the anger is directed at. Thank you for that correction. Turtle Y from Italy. You remember Turtle? Could you please share with us your thoughts on the assassination of Anna Politkovskaya? Sorry about the pronunciation, in 2006.
Well, my thoughts are that I believe, and again, because I'm getting this question without I believe she was a journalist who was investigating Russia's war in Chechnya, and she was investigating, things that some people consider to be sensitive, and she was murdered, found dead in her apartment. Who did it? They don't know. There's belief that she was killed by Chechens or she was killed by Russian security authorities, that somehow that her murder was, related to people in high places wanting to silence her voice. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is here. I do know that I've spoken to a number of Russian journalists who operated during that time. It is a very dangerous time to be a Russian journalist. Russia was still going through some very difficult transitions from the decade of the 90s onwards. There were a lot of corruption, a lot of oligarch-related powers, a lot of mafia-related powers. Then you had the whole war thing, where you had the Chechens, and the Russians continuing to fight, even though there was peace. There was a lot of cleanup that had to be done. So I think she got caught up in that, and she lost her life tragically. But I don't know enough, and to be honest, I've read about this, but I haven't done the deep dive into this. I know there's controversy about her death, and and then someday, hopefully, the truth will come out.
All right. I hope you're satisfied with that answer, Turtle. Walt from the great state of Missouri, as some are wont to say. To paraphrase Mark Twain, concerning the difference between American political leaders and the jackass, some observers hold there isn't any, but this wrongs the jackass. Hold on. That's not a paraphrase. That's a quote.
That's a quote.
Thoughts?
I love the quote. And here's the only problem with that. That implies that there are American political leaders. Leader is an important word. Leadership implies certain traits, personality traits, certain level of integrity, etc. I think we got American politicians, but I don't see any. leaders out there. Maybe Donald Trump could be called a leader. I mean, look at the motivation that he gets. I agree with Vasca that there was a lot going on with Anya's reporting. That there's a whole number of different lines she could have crossed and people she could have irritated. And when you start investigating mafia, oligarchs, and money, you, especially during that time period, you could pay the ultimate price. So her death is tragic, and I hope we find out who did it. I look, what it's basically saying is that American leaders suck. Political leaders suck, and it's an insult to call them a jackass, because a jackass doesn't deserve to be insulted in that fashion. And I certainly agree. Let's just take a look at the state of the current, political parties. Donald Trump is an outlier. He's not a traditional Republican. In fact, he used to be a Democrat. So let's put Donald Trump out of this equation. Your standard Republican leaders suck, and your standard Democratic leaders suck. They don't care about America. They don't care anything about America. It's all about politics. Even independent candidates have sold out to special interests. So I think that, American democracy has been fundamentally broken by the corruption of money. And until we remove money from the equation, we will have political leaders that are an insult to jackasses.
All right. And I will corroborate that. As a jackass, I can tell you that I am offended to be compared to politicians. So you're right on the money there, Scott. Thank you. It's good to have a jackass on hand when something like this comes up so you can verify it. Storm Crow 87 in the great city of London. If the IDF is defeated, do you think they are mad enough to use nuclear weapons? Would it be possible to shoot them all down?
I mean, the IDF is in the process of being defeated. It's not about the defeat of the IDF. It's about the existential survival of Israel. Israel's nuclear weapons. The great Seymour Hersh wrote a book called The Samson Option. And basically, Samson, of course, is from the Bible, reference to the strong man with the long hair. And Delilah seduced him, cut his hair, became weak. But in the end, he got his strength back and pushed down the temple and killed everybody. So the Samson option is, if we're going down, everybody's going down. We're pushing it in. The whole temple's coming down. Everybody dies. And that basically is the deterrence. It tells the, hundreds of millions of Arabs who live around Israel that if you want to destroy us, understand that we will kill all of you in the process. So it's not about defeating the IDF. The IDF is being defeated in Gaza right now. And if they go to war against Hezbollah, they're going to be defeated there. It comes down to the existential survival of Israel. And there's a difference. I mean, we're talking about a two-state solution, a one-state solution. If there's a negotiated process that Israel is participating in, then we don't have the panic and the fear. But if we see the collapse of the IDF, we see Arab armies overrunning Israel, we see the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens, things like that, then I think the Israelis would use nuclear weapons. And no, you're not going to shoot them all down. They would inflict serious harm on the region. It'd also be the end of Israel, but they don't care because it's the Samson option, which means we're taking, and people are going, well, the Israelis wouldn't be crazy. Hannibal Directive. These are the guys that kill their own soldiers and their own civilians just because they've been taken hostage. They pump poison gas into, into tunnels and kill their own people, even though they know they're down there. No, the Israelis, they're man. I'm finishing up part 2 of my Sympathy for the Devil article series, and I don't want to give it away, but the Israelis are inherently evil. And if Satan resides in the earth today, he resides in Israel, and he's infected the heart and the soul of many of Israel's current leaders, including Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, Lindsey Graham, whom you've dubbed the perfume princess, wants to blow around to smithereens. Did you see this this tweet from Tucker Carlson that went about as viral as tweets go? Yeah, no, he's Lindsey Graham is he's been infected with Satan. I feel like I'm that character from Saturday Night Live, Satan. But evil is evil, and however you want to describe it, Lindsey Graham is the personification of evil, and Senator John Cornyn likewise. Target Tehran. Well, I'll tell you what, John. Why don't you go, park your ass somewhere where the Iranians can strike back, brave man. The 3 dead Americans that lost their lives on Syrian territory, I believe,
are killed because of people like Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn, who allow these military misadventures to take place without any consideration. They're willing to sacrifice American life, just so they can posture around like the little perfume princess that he is and act tougher than he could ever be in real life. Because I'll tell you what, Lindsey Graham, you are a marshmallow. There's nothing solid about you. You aren't a tough guy. And when you talk like this, you're not fooling anybody. We know who you are. You're a nothing. And yet, his words, because he's a senator, carry a certain amount of weight. The blood of those 3 Americans is on the hands of Lindsey Graham, on the hands of John Cornyn, on the hands of every American politician that has allowed this continued American illegal occupation of Syrian territory to take place over the past years.
You've been screaming about the insanity of attacking Iran for years. I wish I had it queued up now. I don't. But do you remember what I consider to be one of your greatest rants ever when you were with Seymour Hersh in New York? And you
pick a city.
Yeah. Maybe we'll dig that up we'll dig that up for Friday. Oh, actually, it's not Friday this week. We're going to be on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Thursday night.
But that's
somebody.
Somebody.
Somebody is going to see Elvis Costello Friday night. We don't want to mention which one of us it is, but let's give the audience a clue. It's the one with very kissable lips.
Not me.
All right. Marco from Panama. Could it be said that the USA became a tyranny without a tyrant, with a group of anonymous people who play the role of the tyrant?
Yeah, but I think we can be a tyranny with a tyrant and a group of anonymous people who facilitate the actions of the tyrant. The American presidency, has become this almost an imperial presidency. The notion of there's a term, I'm tired, but the executive, the supreme executive, where all power resides with the executive, and Congress really doesn't have, Congress is facilitated by the War Powers Act. I mean, come on. Congress is supposed to make the hard decisions about war, but they've punted through the War Power Act, giving the president the ability to do whatever the hell he wants for 180 days. All he has to do is submit paperwork, but we know now that he doesn't have to submit paperwork. He doesn't have to do anything. The whole Houthi operation was done in contravention of important elements of the War Powers Act. And Congress isn't doing anything at all because they don't want to be involved in that decision making. They're afraid of being held responsible for bad decisions. But the real problem in the United States is what we call the interagency, or you could call it the deep state. And I told this story about how I went to a reunion and a U.S. government official, arms control official, came up and asked the question, why didn't the president implement the sole purpose doctrine of nuclear power, meaning the sole purpose is nuclear deterrence, and that's the only reason why we exist, to get rid of preemption? They said, well, yes, Biden did promise that on the campaign trail, but the interagency wasn't ready for this. And I'm like, well, who the hell voted for the interagency? Nobody. We don't even know who they are. They just exist. Donald Trump I'm starting to like him more and more because he says things like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean house. If you guys vote me in as president, that means you want me to be president. That means that the people that work in the U.S. government have to be willing to do my policies. I don't want Biden holdovers. I don't want professional interagency people who aren't ready for what I want to do. So they need to be purged. America has been corrupted by what I call the blob of the professional civil servant, who takes it upon his or herself to make decisions outside of democratic processes, outside of congressional oversight or control, outside of independent of executive direction. They're just there. This is why we can't get nuclear disarmament, because the interagency isn't ready for it. Well, let's fire the interagency. And I think Donald Trump has said that if he becomes president, that's what he's going to do.
But the greatest threat to Western civilization today is not Russia. It's probably, more than anything else, ourselves.
Let's take a phone call and then do the coin giveaway. How about that for an agenda? Hey there, you're on with our favorite weapons inspector.
Hello, Scott. How are you? I did order one of those coins. I haven't received it yet, but I'm hoping to.
We don't actually send it out. We just keep the money.
Oh,
that's fine. You guys are worth supporting.
Okay. Send us an email if it's been too long, and we'll look into it.
Oh, did he win a coin? He didn't get one?
Did you buy it or win it?
I did. I bought it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We send them both out.
No. You got to get the coin. Yeah, we got to get you the coin.
We send them both out properly, whether it's a giveaway or all right. Send us an
Yeah,
email.
It's been a few months, so I'll look into it.
A few months. Well, just send us an
I'm
email.
in Canada. I don't know. Maybe it got held up at the border because your name's on it. I don't know.
Whose name? Mine?
Well, your organization. Trudeau might have some sort of block on that stuff.
All right, you're paranoid. What's your question?
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
All right.
My question. Okay, I did talk to Scott last time, and I said, would it behoove Russia to bring people from all walks of life? And you mentioned the political tour you're doing, and I just wanted to expound on my question or my statement. I mean, like, war runs on all kinds of people. It runs on intelligence. It runs on machinery. It runs on plumbers. It runs on everything. So dehumanization is the cornerstone of war. So my thought is, if you're going to Russia with a tour, take a guy with a small engine channel, take a guy with an electrical channel, take a guy with a farming channel, take people who speak to everybody, not just politically astute people. That was just my thought. I don't know how you're doing it. I love what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Nope, I got it.
We were having a conversation about that earlier today. So, Scott, why don't you talk to him about the diversity, what you already had in mind, and you just an hour ago we're saying. Thanks for your call. Good question.
No, you're good. There's a couple issues here. One, let's just talk about the what you're trying to achieve, and that's exactly what has to happen. We have to bring in as diverse a group as possible because humans are diverse, and you can't just bring in people that are mirror images of me or Jeff. We have to bring in a whole range of people to meet a whole range of people in Russia. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I also like the idea. You actually just put food for thought here, Jeff. Disable the whip because we're going to have a talk here, please. I mean, I don't want to get rid of this because this is important. This is important talk. Jeff and I have been talking about bringing Ask the Inspector to Russia, and we're going to. There's also been talk about, Judge Napolitano bringing Judging Freedom to Russia and doing some podcasts there. But what you just said is, what a great idea. If we could find a group of, social media influencers, I guess is what, people who do podcasts with diverse ranges of, diverse points of view and focuses, and bring them to Russia and have them hook up with Russian counterparts, sort of do a multimedia tour or something of that nature.
No, that was what somebody else suggested. This guy was suggesting like common laborers.
I thought he was saying channels. I might have misunderstood.
Yeah, I think that's what he said. Plumbers. He gave us an example. Like regular people.
Well, maybe we have a plumber channel. I don't know. But the bottom line is, whether it's multimedia or whether it's just bringing the working man, I think you're 100% correct. That needs to be done. But remember, it's not just about the experience. Okay, let's say we take Jake the plumber, and Jake goes over to Russia and he meets Sergey the plumber, and they have a little plumber get together and they figure out how to do plumbing together and all that stuff, and it's wonderful. Then he comes back to America. What's Jake the plumber's plan? I mean, we just put a lot of effort in him getting together with Sergey, and yes, it's nice that they shook hands, but what's his plan of action upon returning? What is he going to do? How is he going to spread the word about Sergey the plumber? Anybody who goes to Russia needs to have a plan of action upon return, how to further this concept of people diplomacy. The other issue that we have to focus on right now is we've got something called FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And you got to be careful about FARA because your intentions may be pure, but because we're into politics today and it's whatever the hell the U.S. government wants, you don't want to run into a situation where you're prosecuted for failing to register as a foreign agent. A lot of jail time there, a lot of money involved in lawyers, etc. So just to put everybody on notice, I had spoken earlier when I got back. I probably shouldn't have. This is a lesson to me about, a potential all expense paid tour of Crimea. But upon review, it may not be the way to go. There's going to be a different approach taken where we accomplish the same thing, but we don't put the participants at risk. The last thing I want to be involved in is any potential violation of U.S. law, either for myself or anybody I'm affiliated with. So we're going to think this thing through carefully. I don't want to give away the farm, but Jeff and I had a very good meeting today, and we think we found the way forward. And it's a way that has growth attached to it so that we can get the plumber and all that down the road, involved in this kind of interaction, but in an organized way that guarantees not only success on the target, meaning Russia, but also furthering success when you come back. And the real target is the American people and how to spread the news of what you had. But Jeff and I are working very hard on that. But for anybody who I may have gotten their hopes up, Ryan, I'm sorry, about this scholarship, we got to rethink this thing.
But like you said, we can get it. We can accomplish the same thing with just a different method. So,
yeah. Oh, by the way, I just need to say something about messaging and all that. There's been this fake thing going out on Telegram, and it was on Twitter about me asking for political asylum and saying that the Department of Justice has opened up a case on me and all this. And
oh yeah, treason. I forgot to congratulate you on that.
Yes, I've been charged with treason, apparently. Yeah. Now, I may have been. I don't know. But the point is, that whole thing was fake. I'm not, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not under investigation. If I was, I'd fight it. The last thing I'd ever do is flee. I'm not leaving. I'm not denouncing my citizenship. I'm not running anywhere. And the irony is they're showing an image from a press conference that they gave in Russia where I was asked a question about, was I planning on moving to Russia? And I said, no, I'm an American. America's my homeland. I was born here and I'm going to die here. My purpose of going to Russia isn't to find a new place to live. It's to make my life in America better by avoiding a conflict with Russia. I just happen to like Russia and like the Russian people, and will do my best to visit them as often as possible. But no, even if I were under investigation and charged with treason, I would never run away. I would never leave this country. I would stay and fight.
All right. Well, you have a good defense, and also your co-defendant, Jake the plumber, has a good defense too. It's like, Your Honor, I was just teaching Igor how to unclog a toilet.
That's a violation of sanctions. You're teaching the Russians indoor plumbing. Stupidity.
Let's give away the coin. We're going to have the winner decide which of the two coins it is. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, when Scott went to Russia back in May, there was a coin he gave away on that trip. And then when he went in January, there was a different coin. We've given away both before. And off the top of my head at the start of the show today, I said, I don't know which one we should do. And what we decided was we'll let the winner decide. All right. So if you've typed in #coin in the live chat on any of our social media channels, you have been entered in the drawing, and 548 people are eligible right now. I see that have entered 552 as I'm speaking, a couple more. Let's do it, and we'll see who wins. And the winner is Monty PR.
Monty. He just has to let us know which coin he wants.
That's right. PR, if that usually stands for public relations. So maybe Monty is a publicist. So
or Puerto
feel
Rico.
Free. Oh yeah, it could be in Puerto Rico too. You're right. I was thinking that this would be a good way to get the word out to everybody if he's a publicist. But maybe if he's from Puerto Rico, same thing. All right, so let's go over what we're talking about here. This was the coin in May, and this is for sale at scottrittermerch.com. You can pick that one, Monty. And the one more recently is around here somewhere. Here it is. And that's the card that comes with it. And that is not for sale, but it will be at some point. We have a few of those left. Also, if you would like to buy Scott's book, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika. It's available at scottrittermerch.com, and it's been autographed by the author himself. And we also have a couple of T-shirts for sale. And I think I have, I thought I had a T-shirt. Oh, yeah, here it is. Knowledge is power. That's one of Scott's, what would we call it? A mantra, slogan, motto?
Go-to phrase? I don't know.
Go-to phrase. All right. All right. So Scott and I have been on an irregular schedule. Also, the other show, the Wednesday night show, Yelena, if you can flash that on the screen, the Wednesday night show is called the Scott Ritter Show. That returns tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And Scott's guest will be Elena Ponomareva. She's a Russian political scientist, historian, and publicist. And as I mentioned earlier, Ask the Inspector will be on Thursday night this week instead of Friday night. So it'll be at the usual time, 8 p.m. Pacific time. And that is because Scott is frivolously going to a concert Friday night. And he had, no, that's me. I'm going to see the great Elvis Costello. Do you know what row I'm in? No, of course you don't know, Scott. You want me to tell you what row I'm in?
420.
No, row one. Row one.
Really?
Yep.
Now, are you in the mosh pit or are you in row one?
Well, it's a theater, so it's very civilized. I don't think there'll be much moshing, but there is an orchestra pit where they have 3 rows in front of row one. So that's where I am.
So you're in row 4.
Yeah, you could put it that way.
Well, that's pretty impressive seat.
Terrible seats, in other words.
Now, is this because you have inside connections to the theater, or is this because nobody wants to see Elvis Costello anymore?
No, they have these pre-sale things. So if you just like, whether it's Bob Dylan, Elvis Costello, or anybody, and you just, give your email address to elviscostello.com, they give you a passcode, a password. So before the tickets go on sale to the regular public, they give you a shot at it. So that's all I did. I went to Ticketmaster. I put in the passcode on the day of the pre-sale, and those are the tickets I got.
Why can't you get me front row seats to Bruce Springsteen, Jeff?
Well, who says I can't? Give me time. He's going to be in Albany in a couple of months, right?
I don't know. Didn't he went off tour? Is he coming back on tour?
Yeah. He's going to, I don't remember the date offhand, but he's going back on tour this spring, and he's going to be in Albany.
Do your magic, Jeff. Do your magic.
You never know.
Maverick says, send Scott to the boss. Send Scott to the boss.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll close with a little bit of a bring back that Tucker Carlson tweet, and this will take us out. And see you Thursday night at 8 p.m. and watch the Scott Ritter Show. That, by the way, is only on Rumble and Locals on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Take care, everybody.
They all hate us anyhow, so let's drop the big one now. Let's drop the big one